Okay, this is just a short video to show you how LogCat works. It's built into Android Studio, so there's nothing that you have to individually install, but you do need to import it. So the first thing you do is you import android.util.log right here, and then you need to set up some sort of string that's going to tag your specific messages. So for example, in their documentation they say just set up this little static file here, and it's going to be a string. The name will be tag, but of course you can name it anything you want, and then just some sort of string like my activity or whatever. And that is helpful because when you get into LogCat, you're actually able to narrow down to just the messages you want to see by writing my activity into the search box, and I'll show you that in just a second. So once you have that set up, all you need to do is go down into a function or whatever you want to test just to see what's going to show up or if it's running. So in this case, I have a couple LogCat messages in here. This one right here is saying onsave instance state. So if this method's called, it's going to give me a little message here telling me it got called. This one will display if my onStop gets called. This will display for my onStart. Actually, if my running is true, it will display was running true. And then this was just a little onStart message I have if onStart gets called. And what this application does is a little stopwatch. But what I'm using LogCat for is just to look at the different states of when this application goes from an onStop state to an onStart state to whatever. So LogCat is actually really nice to do this. And your book talks about LogCat quite a bit. So if I go down here at the bottom, I have a little thing called LogCat, and if I just click on that, I get this box that comes up here. And the first thing I want to do is make sure I got the right emulator selected. Now, a lot of times what it does to me is if I've been running this a couple of times, I have to make sure that I put it on the current one. What it likes to do is default to disconnected, and I get no messages to show up. It's because I'm not on the right one. So I'm going to run on this little Pixel 3 Android 10 emulator right here. So I'm going to make sure to select that. And this is just my application. That's fine. I can leave that there. And this is just left at verbose right now. Now I have this set at log.I, which is actually for info. But I just want to show you LogCat without doing anything. Okay, so I have an application here, and I'm just going to I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. And this is the app right here. And you can see that my LogCat has a whole bunch of stuff that's logging. Okay, and when this gets to be a lot of information, it's really hard to decipher and go through all this and figure out what it is. But there's a much easier way, and that is where we can narrow it down using the string that I used up here, which was my activities right here. Okay, so if I go into my box here and I go my activity, and I can either hit verbose or hit info. It's going to give me the same thing, but here it gave my little onStart message because when my application started up, it went to onStart. Okay, so you can see that I was able to narrow it down right to onStart. So that worked out pretty good. I'll go ahead and start this little stopwatch for a minute, and then I'm going to go ahead and just move it over. Now you can see that when I change it, it goes to the onStop, and then it goes to onsave instance state, and then of course it starts running again, so it was running, was true, and it calls onStart. Okay, so it's showing how the life cycle works, and it also shows that this onsave instance state method gets called. Now don't worry so much about this, I'm just really showing you how I use LogCat to tell me some information, because otherwise my application would just be working, but I wouldn't really know when things are being called or whatever. And if something wasn't working that was supposed to be called, there'd be no way of me even knowing if a function gets called. A lot of times students come to me and they say, well, X isn't working and I don't know why. And if it's something that's inside a function, the first thing I would say is, well, do you even know if that function got called? Did it even fire? And this is a good way to test that. Now, LogCat can only display strings. So if you want to, see if an array got created or something like that, you're going to have to, of course, loop through it and not put it as a string. If you have integers, you're going to have to convert them to strings, things like that. You'll have to do for LogCat. But for the most part, it's very useful to do this. And you can see when I turn this back, it ran through all my LogCat messages again. I can click this little garbage can over here, clear my messages out, and if I say do that, you can see that onStop, onsave instance got called, and then I come here, it comes down again. So what happens here when I hit that garbage can is it cleared my screen off so I could see new information. So that's actually a pretty slick little thing. Now what I'm going to do is I can go ahead and stop this right here, And I want to show you that you can actually work on errors too. So I'm going to come up here. I got a little bit of code that I commented out, this main activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this main activity function inside of main activity. It's going to cause an error on my application when I try to run it. I'm going to clear the garbage can off, and I have to clear my activity out. Otherwise, it will try to filter everything to my activity. And I'll just go run to errors, because we're going to have some errors get generated. And if I go ahead and click this again and get this emulator going, you can see that I have all sorts of errors that just popped up. And if you look at the application, it's blank here. It's not running. Okay, and the reason is because of what I did here. Now, what you need to do is you need to kind of go up through your activity file, and what you look for is usually there's a link in here that's highlighted in blue. And if you click on that link, it will go right to where the problem is. In this case, it's not doing it, but that's not the end of the world, because you can see it says fatal exception main. Press E, got permitted stopwatch version 3, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically telling me, well, there's a fatal exception here. What's very difficult about this one is it's not really being too good about telling me where the problem exactly is. It just says unable to instantiate activity component info, blah, 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 blah. And it should come down here. It is main activity init is not accessible from Java Lang class. So this is basically saying this main activity that I tried to call is not accessible from that class. And so it's giving me a runtime error. Now, again, usually it shows you where these errors are at. You can click on them, go to them. It gives you the line number, and then you can kind of read their somewhat cryptic message and figure it out. But I just wanted to show you how this works. And in this case, it didn't have a nice little link. And I know we knew what the error was, so it was easy to kind of figure out their message. But this is another really good thing to use to figure out some of your errors that happen after the application compiles and it tries to load. If we come into here, as you can see, there's no errors showing up here. Okay, but in the LogCat, you can see them, and it's just by showing the error. If I hit the verbose, I can do that, but then I get more information too. So error will just take it down to just the error. So that's just a little tutorial on LogCat to give you an idea of how it works. It is very, very useful. So I highly advise that you guys use this in developing your applications. That's it.